Jackson Wang becomes FIE Global Ambassador from fencing champion to K-pop star, full story. On July 25, an announcement quickly caught the attention of both entertainment fans and sports followers. Jackson Wang has officially been appointed Global Ambassador of the Fédération Internationale des and Oppos, Escrime, FIE, the International Fencing Federation. The news swiftly became a hot topic online. But the public wasn't oppos. Excited simply because Jackson had added another big title to his career. For those who have followed his journey over the years, this appointment carries a very personal significance. This isn't oppos, some random commercial tie-up, nor is it a case of a celebrity making a brief, token appearance in the sporting world. It oppos. The story of a former athlete finally returning to a part of his life that once mattered deeply. Long before he became an international singer, performer, and prominent figure in fashion, Jackson Wang stood on the piste with an épée in hand. Fencing wasn't oppos. A hobby he picked up for a reality show, nor an image crafted by a brand. It was a serious pursuit, woven into his childhood and teenage years. Jackson grew up in a family with a strong sporting background. His father was a professional fencer who later became a coach, while his mother was an accomplished gymnast. Surrounded by sportspeople from a young age, Jackson understood early on what discipline, sacrifice, and competitive pressure meant. He began fencing at the age of 10. From then on, training became a key part of his life. Competing in épée for Hong Kong, Jackson achieved a number of impressive results. He won junior and youth Asian championships and was regarded as one of the region and oppos' most promising young athletes. At that point, Jackson appeared to have a clear path ahead in sport, even a shot at an Olympic-focused trajectory. Yet Jackson made a decision that few around him could have anticipated. Instead of continuing on the path of professional fencing, he left the piste and went abroad to pursue an entirely different dream: music. Walking away from a familiar path is never easy, especially one that had already brought success. Jackson didn't oppos. Leave because he failed. He gave up something he was genuinely good at simply because another dream was calling him more strongly. The sword in his hand was replaced by a microphone. The quiet focus before each bout gave way to immense pressure on stage. Instead of competing to score points against an opponent, Jackson had to fight on his own to find opportunities in an entertainment industry that was entirely foreign to him. Looking back at his career today though, in oppos, it's clear Jackson never really let go of the lessons fencing had taught him. Fencing demands focus, quick decision-making, and emotional control. An athlete can and oppos afford to dwell on losing a point, because the next attack could come within seconds. The sport teaches you to accept mistakes, adjust instantly, and keep moving forward. His musical journey wasn't oppos. Always smooth sailing. He faced pressure working in a foreign environment, had to meet the expectations placed on an idol, and had to carve out his own identity beyond the group that first brought him to public attention. Later, as he built his solo career and his own projects, Jackson took on even more responsibility. In my view, his experience as an athlete likely helped him get through those difficult stretches. Fencing may no longer be part of his daily schedule, but the mindset forged through years of training has stayed with him. That and oppos is precisely what makes this appointment so special. The FI didn't and oppos, just pick a famous face with a large fan base. Jackson genuinely understands the sport from the inside. He knows the physical exhaustion that lies behind every flawless bout, understands the loneliness of facing an opponent alone, and has experienced the disappointment of losing after months of preparation. More importantly, he understands why athletes keep pushing on despite all this. The appointment carries even more weight given that Jackson is FI and oppos' first ever global ambassador. So this isn't and oppos, simply a promotional contract. The role represents genuine recognition from the sport and oppos' international governing body, and comes with real responsibility to introduce fencing to a wider audience. The FI hopes to work with Jackson to spread the values and spirit of fencing, while shifting the perception that it and oppos' a sport that and oppos' too foreign, too complicated, or reserved only for a select few. Compared to football, basketball, or badminton, fencing can still feel inaccessible to the average viewer. The rules aren't an oppos' widely understood, the action moves extremely fast, and the protective gear makes it hard for audiences to recognize individual athletes and oppos' personalities. Through his influence in music, fashion, and pop culture, Jackson has the ability to bring fencing closer to young people who and oppos' never watched about before. Someone might tune in because they and oppos' a Jackson Wang fan, but after learning more, they could well develop a genuine interest in the sport itself. Jackson and Oppos. S value as ambassador doesn't and Oppos. T-line fame alone. He can serve as a bridge between two worlds that rarely intersect, professional fencing and mainstream entertainment. At the announcement event, Jackson shared candidly that growing up in a sporting family shaped who he is today. He said fencing taught him how to focus and how to face both victory and defeat. Jackson also revealed that this was a role he had long hoped to take on. His goal isn't and Oppos. T just to appear at fencing events, but to showcase the sport and Oppos' true beauty to a more diverse audience. FIE officials described the appointment as Jackson returning to the fencing family. The setting of the announcement made the moment even more emotional. Jackson returned to his home turf during the 2026 World Fencing Championships, held in Hong Kong. This time, however, he wasn't and Oppos' appearing as the young athlete people once expected to see on the piste. The young fencer who once fought for every point has become a global music star. Now, Jackson returns with the responsibility of helping fencing reach audiences around the world. On social media, many fans called the appointment a full-circle moment. A former professional épée fencer who left his original path, built a successful career on the international stage, and ultimately found his way back to the sport he loves. The entertainment world has no shortage of celebrity sport collaborations, but Jackson and Oppos' story still feels different. His connection to fencing didn't and Oppos' begin with this appointment, and it won an Oppos' end when a promotional campaign wraps up. Even after stepping away from competitive fencing, he has continued to speak about his athletic past in interviews and public appearances. Jackson has never treated that chapter as something to hide or forget. On the contrary, he has repeatedly acknowledged that fencing played a major role in shaping who he is. That sincerity matters, because audiences can usually tell the difference between a partnership arranged purely for promotion and a relationship built on real lived experience. Fencing itself is, in many ways, a fitting mirror of Jackson and Oppos' own life. The sport demands a balance between attack and defense, courage and patience, instinct and judgment. A fencer must know when to advance, when to fall back, and when to wait for the right opening. Leaving fencing behind might once have looked like the end of Jackson and Oppos' sporting dream. But perhaps it was simply one move in a much longer match. He stepped away, entered a different world, and returned with an influence he likely wouldn't and Oppos' have gained had he remained just a young athlete. The sweat he once left on the training floor wasn't and Oppos' wasted. The repeated drills, the painful setbacks, the moments he had to keep going even when his body was spent. All of it became part of the person who would later stand confidently on global stages. End quote. Once a fencer, always a fencer. End quote. For Jackson Wang, that saying has perhaps never rung truer. From a young athlete in fencing gear, to an international artist with a microphone, to now FIE and Oppos' global ambassador, his journey has taken two very different paths, yet both are connected by the same underlying determination. This appointment isn't and Oppos' just a return to the past. It also gives Jackson the chance to turn his personal story into something meaningful for the future. If he can help young audiences better understand the strategy, discipline, and beauty of fencing, then Jackson and Oppos' influence will bring real value to the sport. Some may start watching because of Jackson, but they could well stay because they discover athletes and stories that deserve far more attention. To me, that and Oppos' what makes this honor so special. It doesn't an Oppos' invalidate the decision Jackson made years ago, nor does it suggest he should have stuck with being an athlete. If anything, this story proves that one dream doesn't and Oppos' have to destroy another. Sometimes, the paths we once walked away from find their way back to us at just the right moment. Jackson Wang once stepped off the piste in search of a bigger stage. Now, he returns with the ability to bring the eyes of a global audience back to the sport that helped shape who he is. Do you think Jackson Wang and Oppos' new role could inspire more young people to discover the true beauty of fencing?